Hey everybody, this is Josh McKinney, and I just want to welcome you to episode 93 of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show.
You know, people usually when
Elephant in the room. It's been a month since I've talked to you guys. I have not recorded anything on my podcast in the last month. I've barely posted on the gram in the last month. And I know that's weird. What weird timing. Why would I do this right after all the cool videos that I was in with Chewy? And if you guys haven't checked out those on Chewy's YouTube channel, my gym was featured in one of his videos when he came down and did a seminar. And there is on the gym video, there's like 5-6 minutes of Chewy and I rolling. And so if you guys want to check that out, it's really cool. Then we did another little show on his YouTube channel where we just talked about my podcast and what it means to suck at jiu-jitsu. I recommend checking that out. And then the last one, and the one you really need to check out, is I show my famous ankle lock, my K-guard setup to ankle lock. That is just a really strong move that I've been using a lot in competition at the Black Belt adult level lately. And that is completely free. You can go to his YouTube channel and check that out. And let me know what you guys think. I would love to hear from you guys. But like I said, it's been a month. Haven't done an episode. Haven't recorded anything. I actually did record something, and it wasn't as good as I had wanted it to be. And honestly, I was just a bit burnt out. Not just on the podcast, just with training in general. By the end of by American Nationals, I did like 4 tournaments in 2.5 months, and it completely beat me down. And I will talk a lot more about that next week, and what jiu-jitsu burnout looks like and how to handle it, because it's a taboo topic. You're not allowed to be burnt out. Jiu-jitsu is what you love, especially for me. Jiu-jitsu is my life. It's all I do. Every business that I run, everything that I do, most of my friends, they all have to do with jiu-jitsu. But what's interesting is my guest today actually has a very similar way of life. Also owns a few businesses, actually owns quite a few businesses, and pretty much all of them pertain to jiu-jitsu. If you guys don't know who James Clingerman is, he really is one of the OG Midwest black belts. I remember, and we get into this story, he was actually the first black belt that I ever met. Or one of the two. He and somebody else fought on the same, fought in the same tournament, and my coach was in it, and I got to meet both of those guys. My coach was a purple belt at the time, and so it was mind-blowing to meet a black belt at that time in 2008. And it's even cooler that 13 years later, I'm interviewing this guy on my podcast and getting to ask him questions and learn a lot from him. You guys are really going to enjoy this episode. I'm glad this is the episode that we came back after a month layoff on, because I think you'll notice the sense of humor is very similar between James and I. And I know a lot of people enjoy the sarcastic humor that I provide on the show. And he really ups the ante, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy this one. And so without further ado, and because I'm still tired and a little burnt out, let's jump right into the episode. We're rolling. So I'm sitting down with an OG of Midwest Jiu-Jitsu. I thought we would start more Jiu-Jitsu, but in prep for this, I always like to listen to people being on podcasts. And something that came up on one of your podcasts, it was with Chewy, is you threw out a fun fact about a Olympian who died and still got first place. Okay, I don't even know if you remember this conversation. And they kind of,
what are you talking about?
They kind of talked to you like you were crazy. And so I went on research.
Thank you.
And there was an Olympian who had an ankle lock and either got choked to death or his neck broken and won by submission. And so they put his dead body on top of the podium, and he was considered the first place winner in that pancration fight. And so I just thought that we could start by saying, you're not crazy, Chewy is. I think that would be a good place
I feel like
to start.
Just starting, we know that already, right? Like everybody kind of knows Chewy's a little crazy, but thank you for validating that story.
I wanted to make sure you knew. You apparently didn't even remember telling it, but I wanted to make sure you knew that you weren't the crazy one in the story. But I really wanted to start with when you started. You've been training jiu-jitsu since 97?
So 97, yeah, when I started Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
And you were training martial arts before that?
Yeah, so I started karate, I think when I was like 13. And then around the time I was like 15, 16-ish, I started judo. And then that school actually had a jiu-jitsu program. It was very Aikido-like. It was like really what it was. It was the instructor was a black belt in judo and taekwondo, and said he kind of created his own system of jiu-jitsu and just went from there. So
yeah, usually those work out really well too. Those are usually the best.
It was super legit. It was totally the same as Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which is what I heard constantly.
I heard he invented berimbolo. Is that true?
Yeah. With the hakama, with the big black skirt. Berimbolo is way easier with that.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So much more to grip. That makes perfect sense. So what turned you from that into a true Brazilian jiu-jitsu school?
Just the fact that there was one.
Yeah.
So you got to think, man, I started in the late 90s. Like jiu-jitsu wasn't on every street corner by any means. Sorry, my phone's like going off like crazy. I put it on Do Not Disturb. And
oh my goodness. Keep in mind, just while you're thinking about it, in 97, I was 3. Okay. So you might have to paint a pretty good word picture for me on this. I've talked to a lot of people about it, but I might need a word picture.
So man, like there was no Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right? I mean, like you might find a blue belt running a club at a YMCA or in the back of a Taekwondo school every other state, right? Like there just was no jiu-jitsu. Like I can tell you the first purple belt I ever met was at the Torrance Academy out in California. Right. Like, and it was just like, oh my God, like that guy's got a purple belt. It was amazing. I can tell you the first 3 purple belts I met outside of California, Jack McVicker, Scott Sullivan, Eric Sullivan, right? Like it was not what it is today by any means. You know, I've got more black belts under me than probably were in the United States at that point. Like it's insanity, you know? But yeah, man. So like there was just no jiu-jitsu. And then, man, I always give Greg Elder a lot of credit for, he ran a little club in Ohio and he moved to Indiana, I believe for his job, and started again, just a little club. It was in the basement of an insurance building. So it was very like my basement I'm sitting in now was bigger than the basement I trained in, you know?
How many guys trained?
Oh man. If there were 10 guys on the mat, it was packed. And I don't even know if we ever had 10 guys on the mat at the same time. You know, it was, and it was over an hour away from me. Like it was a far drive, and I went there 2-3 times a week. Cause that's all he had. Like usually he had 2 classes a week. And sometimes we'd get together like in his home basement, just a couple of us. Right. And he would be like, guys, I was going over some of my old VHS tapes that I recorded when I was at the academy, and, you know, and cause he had done a lot of privates with, you know, like, I believe like, you know, Holker and Hoyes and Horion and stuff like that. And, Truman Kaiki a lot. So, you know, he had all these like old tapes and stuff of stuff he had just been doing, and he would never show us the tapes. he would watch them, and then like we would go practice them in the basement. And then I was doing the judo and the Japanese jiu-jitsu a couple of times a week, and train with my buddies on the off days. And so yeah, I was doing 7 days a week and some form of grappling, you know. But
what was your intention in it? Were you just trying to learn, you'd enjoyed it, or were you wanting to be a fighter? What was your thought?
Yeah. So both. So I think like mean, I was always just drawn to the martial arts, and it was more of like just a means of self-defense, like I was attracted to fighting. Like I didn't go out and get in fights ever. I mean, a couple here and there as a kid, like when you're 8 years old, you get in little scuffles or whatever, but I was just always, I was always a big fan of Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris and like all the old, Kung Fu movies and stuff. But I think ultimately it was I just always had like this desire to be able to defend myself. No real like goal in mind, I guess. But then when I started training, I think, man, like when I saw the UFC come out, I was like, I think I want to do that. And, back then, man, like if you were doing jiu-jitsu and you weren't looking to fight, it was weird. You were like,
that was what it was for, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Like I remember we had one guy and he didn't compete and fight. And we were all just like, why are you here, weirdo? And now like 80% of my people, they're like, no, I want to come in, have fun, get in shape, learn some stuff. And definitely different dynamic, like everybody in the room was always wanting to, if not, I would say probably 60% of the people were trying to do MMA, at least, a little bit, maybe not on a professional level, but just as a hobby, like, yeah, man. So like, I started doing that. I started jiu-jitsu in 97. So like late June, early July of 97. And I think I took my first MMA fight in March of 98.
And so how did your first MMA fight go?
Great.
Yeah.
It went great. So I fought a guy. He was a Hapkido guy, who had done some jiu-jitsu. Went out, we had a little standing exchange. It was me punching him. And then I took him down and mounted him. He rolled out. He rolled for a footlock. I rolled up, mounted him, armbarred him, 1 minute exactly. Felt really good. It's like, cool. I was actually kind of sad it was over. I was like, man, I trained really hard for 1 minute. And then, which was, I think I jinxed myself because I went back. I was in the locker room changing. I was getting ready to come out and watch the rest of the fights. And they come in, they're like, hey, Shoney Carter needs an opponent. So that what they had done was they did a 4-man tournament at middleweight. I think the limit was like 168 or something like that. I don't remember what the weight class was. I know I was 163 because I was the same weight like throughout high school until my late 20s. But they came in and they're like, hey, so Shad Williams, who is Sean Williams' brother.
Sean's brother, right?
Yeah. So Shad actually fought in the tournament that night and broke his thumb because he wanted to box a karate guy instead of doing jiu-jitsu. Shame on you, Shad. He broke his thumb. So they came to me and they're like, hey, you want to, fight in the final in this tournament? And I was like, no, I had my fight. This is what I trained for. And they said, well, he just gets the belt, and if you fight, you get the belt. And I was like, well, Eric Moon's my weight. He had the other fight. And they're like, yeah, but you're the alternate. I'm like, well, can't he be an alternate? We're all the same weight. And they're like, no, if you don't take it, it's over. And I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah, I'll fight him. Why not? So
did you know anything about Shoney at the time?
Negative. Like, I found out a lot about him the next day, like, oh man, he was the Extreme Challenge champion. He's actually a professional fighter and this and that. But man, we had a good fight. Like on our feet, I think I actually won most of the exchanges on our feet. And man, he just out wrestled me like you would not believe. Like it was like lat drops and suplexes and hip tosses. And like, he controlled where the fight was the whole match. On the ground, it was either way, like nothing, neither one of us had anything. He probably had side control on me a couple times, but never any real damage or anything. And I lost the decision, rightfully so. He definitely controlled the match. But it was a 12-minute round and a 3-minute overtime. So it was a
weird. Single 12-minute round.
Yeah.
Oh,
so, and like the overtime was just, it wasn't like, oh, it was really close, let's go to an overtime. It was like, no, you made it to 12 minutes. Let's add 3 more, like, so yeah. I had that 15-minute match with him that night. And like I said, he ended up winning and getting a little belt.
Man. Do you talk to Shoney ever?
Yeah. Every once in a while, man, we run into each other at like events and stuff. And just chit chat.
I went up to, this would have been maybe 2 years ago at this point. Went up to I want to say it was like 15-year anniversary for Mark Vivas' school. And he invites like every black belt from Chicago to attend. And, Mark's a good dude. A lot of people are there. There is like 30 black belts. Well, every time somebody gets promoted, they've got to come down and shake everybody's hand. And I'm like, man, I don't know any of these guys. So I was like, hey, congratulations. I assume it's well-deserved, but maybe it's not. I don't know. And so, and like they would all, everyone would kind of like do every person pretty respectfully. Thank you, professor. Thank you, professor. I'm like, I didn't do anything. I've never met you before. It's not, I didn't help you in any way. You're welcome. Keep up the good work. Well, the funny thing is Shoney Carter's standing behind me. And so thank you, professor. Thank you, professor. Thank you, professor. Shoney. And he would be Shoney, he would be exactly who he is. He'd be hugging people and telling them like, yeah, man. And I would ask the people after like, hey, have you ever trained with Shoney? And they'd be like, no, I've never met him. Like, oh, okay. He was acting like you guys were best friends since like high school, like he's so proud of you for getting your blue belt and stuff.
Right.
And he's a different dude, but he's still the same dude that he's always been. Yeah. There was something else, a little note. You said you remember the first purple belts that you met. Do you remember your first black belt that you?
Oh, what's funny is I probably really don't. I mean, it would have been. Let me think. I can easily get to this. It had to have been Hoist, right? It had to have been Hoist Gracie. Yeah, I'm sure.
Because he was the only black belt at the time. So
yeah. So, man, I think, it was definitely at the Torrance Academy. Went out there, probably met. Yeah, man, it was either Hoist or Horion, like first introduction handshake. You know what I mean? I don't think I met any before that. But yeah, so I started in June of '97, and I did nationals out in Torrance in like September, October of '97. So I hadn't been training very long before I was already going to California to compete. Right.
What year did you get your black belt?
2007.
Okay. So this is fun. That was actually like the year before I started training. Cause I asked you, do you remember your first black belt that you ever met? What's funny is you were actually the first black belt that I ever met.
Are you serious?
Yes, you were. My coach, Kyle, was a purple belt, and he got on, I want to say it was like an invitational thing. It was the Ohio Grappling Challenge. And I had been training about 2 or 3 months. Jack was Kyle's coach. McVicker was Kyle's coach, but I had never met Jack. He had never come in for a seminar yet. So I'd never seen a brown belt. So that was the first time seeing brown and black belts. And I remember like, one of my buddies was like, oh yeah, that's James Clingerman. He's a black belt. And I'm like, no way. Like, there's no way there's a real black belt here. And we, are all starstruck. Kyle knows you. So it's like, like we get to
Kyle's awesome, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we get to talk to you and stuff. And we're like, dude, this is crazy. We are meeting a real life celebrity right now. And so I'm 14, maybe at the time. I do what any 14-year-old would do, get on YouTube as soon as I get home. James Clingerman Jiu-Jitsu used to have a video. I couldn't find it. I tried to find it like in this last week. You had a video of you showing a no-arm triangle. I believe you have like a BJJ Fanatics video on YouTube where you're showing a no-arm triangle, but that was not the video. There's some, whatever video it was, like it was you showing a no-arm triangle. And it was the first submission that I ever hit on a blue belt, like a year later, because I was just a little chubby kid everyone beat down. And one day some guy had been beating me up for a few hours, goes to double underpass me. And I was like, hey, that black belt that I remember, he did something from here. And I put him in it and finished him. And I was like, well, I guess I am a professional jiu-jitsu guy now. I guess I'm the best ever now.
Totally.
Yeah, I guess it's time to retire.
But that's awesome. How come I wasn't your first guest?
You know what? That is a great question. My first guest was my dad. I feel like that's excusable, But I always like to talk to people in person about being on the show, because when you message them, then sometimes it sits forever. I messaged Sean Williams. He didn't respond for like 9 months. And his response was, Josh, my apologies. I should start a podcast called the I Suck at Technology Show. I didn't even see your message. And I was like, okay, that's why I like to ask people in person. Like, hey, keep in mind, I'm going to be messaging you soon. Let's do a podcast.
Yeah. It only took you like 14 years.
It only took me 14 years, you know. There weren't podcasts back then.
Right.
If there were, and I was a 14-year-old white belt with a jiu-jitsu podcast, I would have interviewed you right there. I'd have been like,
yeah,
I'd have been like, hey, dude.
With your phone. Just
Black belt. Cool, huh? Sweet. So you were training 10 years of jiu-jitsu before you got your black belt. Who gave you your black belt?
So a guy named Mario Roberto. So I got my blue from Hoist, and then in '99. So I said, the three purple belts I met outside of Cali were McVicker and then the Sullivans, Scott and Eric. So we actually started training with those guys just in a garage, and then Eric ended up opening his own school. So his instructor was a guy named Mario Roberto. Mario was under Aníbal Braga. So I got promoted purple, brown, and black, all from Mario. Every belt promotion I've had, oddly enough, for some reason, has been in October. Even my judo brown belt came in October of '99. So like October is a good month for my promotions, I guess. So I got my blue in October of '97, got my purple October 31st, actually on Halloween, 2001, my brown October 30th, 2004, my black October 20th, 2007. So this October 20th, technically I'll be a 4th degree. It'll be my 14th year.
Nice. So what belt were you when you started your school?
Blue, like 3-stripe blue belt.
And that really wasn't uncommon back then. That was actually, you were probably late to the party starting your school as a 3-stripe blue belt.
Right.
What was that like? What was your thought on it? Was it something you started in your basement, or was it, I want a storefront? What was kind of your thought?
Yeah. So I actually started, I just leased a secondary room from a Taekwondo school. They had they had like a little mat area that everyone walked directly across to get to the changing rooms and the bathroom and the alley. So,
with their shoes on.
of course.
Yeah. With their cleats from football practice on.
Yeah. So like, finally I was like, hey, we cannot wear shoes back here. And they're like, what about the bathroom? I'm like, carry them. Like, yeah, it was me mopping like 15 times a day and stuff. But yeah, I had a real small space. It was like, again, probably smaller than my basement now. I think it was like 20 by 22 or something like that. Like pretty small, you know? Yeah, man, I was teaching jiu-jitsu, ended up teaching kids and MMA and kickboxing and everything out of that room. I was in that room for like 2.5 years before the Taekwondo owner, the guy who was running the Taekwondo school actually bought his own building. And it was a giant single room. So he pulls me aside one day, like I'm on my way out after teaching class. He's like, hey, got a minute? I'm like, yeah, man, absolutely. He's like, yeah, man. Hey, I'm buying this building. It's like a mile down the road. It's so big. It's immaculate. It's beautiful. Tells me all these great things about it. And I'm like, cool. And he's like, yeah, but it's only one room. So your program's got to go. I was like, oh, okay. When do you move out? And he's like, 2 weeks. Like, oh, Jesus. Cool. Some heads up might've been nice, but so I moved my program into one of my students' garages for like 2 months while we looked for a building, and then ended up opening when I actually leased a storefront down in Greenwood, which was like way on the other side of town. So like only like a couple like super hardcore guys even followed.
Did you have a job at the time, or were you full-time?
So when the school first started in the back of the Taekwondo place, I had a full-time job building video monitors. It was a job I had directly out of high school. You know, it was a pretty good job, man. It paid well, paid 100% insurance, had 401k, had all the things, you know, and
all the things you get in as a jiu-jitsu coach, right? As a jiu-jitsu
oh yeah,
school
it just comes right with it. Yeah. I had to wait till purple belt. The 401k kicked in at purple.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
But and then the company actually they sold to some guys from Canada, and those guys just ran it into the ground and it closed. And man, I tried like a couple temp jobs and stuff, and I just didn't want to do anything. It's just working sucks. But I was just like, hey, just asked my wife. I was like, how you feel about me just teaching jiu-jitsu full time? Like just open doing, you know, that's when I started the kids and the kickboxing and like all the things, you know. And she's like, yeah, sounds good, you know. So it was around that
crazy
time.
Lady, right?
Yeah, she's a nut job.
Dude, that was same conversation with my wife. Hey, what if I just teach people to hug each other? Like, do you think that would be good for us? And oh yeah, that'll work. Go ahead, go do that. And yeah, that's a unique characteristic of a spouse, though. I mean, I'm sure running your school, you know that there are people that don't want their spouse to train at all.
Man.
You know, much less take that kind of. It really is a crazy risk. It doesn't make a lot of sense. You know, you could just easily work any other job, but but there's something to it that you're like, hey, I got to do this. I just have to.
Yeah. And I would have made a lot more money doing anything else for that. Like first 8 years, I was like, this is horrible. Wish I could eat.
Dude. And that's I wish I could compete. I wish I could travel. I wish I could do anything.
Yeah.
But then once you get there, the beauty is then everyone says, oh man, you're so lucky.
Right.
You know, man, you really lucked out. I wish I could do what you do. And you're like, nah, you don't. Not at first, at least. Now you probably do, but yeah, not at first. What was your has you ever run any type of business before?
No.
So
we basically learned how to run businesses because of the Jiu-Jitsu Academy.
And now how many every business that you have is Jiu-Jitsu related, correct?
Almost. So man, so we have a couple different ones. So like, and it's really hard for me to even keep count because some of them are very like kind of, residual, like kind of a part-time deal. Right.
Yeah.
So like we have like a rental property and stuff like that. Not non-jiu-jitsu. Well, I say non-jiu-jitsu related. Like we have one house and like 3 of my jiu-jitsu guys all lived in it. We're actually selling it right now. So if you want a house in the, ghetto of Indiana.
Oh dude, I'm in. I was just thinking about moving actually. So
cool. Hiring instructors too. So, so we have, like, I guess you can call it a rent. We have a rental business right now. We just have the one property, 2 jiu-jitsu schools. So Indiana Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, this is our 21st year in business. And then my first black belt, Matt Strata, opened a gym, Endurance Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And it just celebrated 7 years. AJ and I bought it, I think right at 3 years ago. So we run 2 jiu-jitsu academies. Where did I don't know. That's 4 now, right? 3, 4. Let's say 3.
I think you just said 2 jiu-jitsu academies, rental properties.
That's it. So
that's
far.
That's where we're at right now.
So then we run the Extreme Grappling Open, the Ego Tournament, the Fight Hub website. So we do, and the Fight Hub does a lot of stuff. Like I do custom gear for people. We do DVDs. We do DVDs, mostly streaming now. And then, it's got a couple cool things on it, like an affiliate program and stuff. So like if schools don't have shops, they can just have a little thing, go, hey, go shop here. And then they get a kickback. What else do we do? I don't know. My wife mainly does like a small business coaching. Goodness gracious. She's got her women's only jiu-jitsu camp role model. It's actually the largest women's grappling camp in the world, I believe. We had 260 women at this last camp and we shut it down. I think it had a waiting list of about 50. I don't know. There's a couple others. I help Chris Woodmansey with his site, the Logic BJJ. And then, we're starting my membership site, the BJJ Foundation.
When does that happen?
I don't know. We got it all filmed. We kind of got all the stuff set. The guy who's doing it, he's revamping the Fight Hub right now. So actually that might launch probably next weekend.
All right.
I think it's all ready to go. It's so beautiful. But the goal was actually have both of them up by August 1st, but it's not going to happen. There's still a lot of video editing that needs to happen. And
do you edit your own video? Or do you have people do it?
Both. I usually edit most of the videos. Depends how busy I am. Like right now with all that stuff, the guy that's building the site's actually the guy that was my dummy while we filmed. And he's actually the guy who's also editing for that. So I don't know. There's a few more in there somewhere. Like, I've done little like side projects with drop shipping and stuff with like AJ's brother and I. We started like a company. We actually we drop ship vinyl records, oddly enough, to the UK. So just weird random things.
Yeah, I know
like
all kinds of people that are involved in that business, shipping vinyl records to the UK. That's that's common.
It's very common.
Most jiu-jitsu coaches that I know, that's what they do.
Yeah. That's how we make all the big money.
So you run, I was going to count, but I ran, you just kept going and going. So I don't remember how many.
I think it's like 8 or 9.
Okay.
Like that,
so you run 8 or 9 businesses, most of which are closely related to jiu-jitsu or have some relation to jiu-jitsu. Do you, is it just something you enjoy doing? It's gotta be, right?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Like it's one of those things, like it's, jiu-jitsu is my life, like legitimately, but at times it gets overwhelming. Like doing all the things all the time gets a little overwhelming. So I have to be very like, I have calendars and I have alarms and I have, I have like workflow sheets and stuff like that. So I have to stay very on track. And there's days where I wake up and I've got a big, long to-do list and I'm like, nope, I'm going to play, I'm going to play video games for a couple hours and lay on the couch and cry about all the things I need to do that aren't getting done.
What video game do you play? What video games do you play?
Yeah. So oddly, man, if you saw my basement here, I have like this whole wall of Nintendo stuff. I'm going to turn this a little bit.
Let's see it.
So like, so all the stuff right. And I even built the little Switch cabinets up there. But I don't play video games that often. Like I'll pick up like a random, like I do a little bit of Tetris, like the Tetris Online 99, whatever it's called. And like I'll throw like old Super Mario Brothers on or something. Like I'm not like a gamer by any means. Like, man, I think the last video game I played was the original Contra. Like just, trying to relive my childhood because I'm old now.
But it just gives you a little escape, like that's
absolutely.
I get running a bunch of businesses and doing maybe a little too much. And, sometimes you need to just be able to sit out for a second and say, hey, I need a day or I need a few days,
Yeah. Man, I remember it was like, I think it was like pre-COVID. I told AJ, I was like, hey, cause she handles most of our scheduling most of the time, and I was like she was booking a seminar and all this stuff. And I said, hey, like I need like a mental health break, right? I need you to start scheduling me at least one weekend a month. That is like, there's nothing on our calendar. And man, I think this was like February. And she goes, oh yeah. Okay. She gets out the calendar. She goes, we have one available in October.
Oh,
and after that, it looks like maybe you start clearing up in June. I was like, oh my God. Like, all right, just suck it up for another year, but yeah, it's just, it's like that. We rented this RV last year before last. I don't know. There was no 2020, right? Like that, that year didn't happen.
Exist.
Okay. So 2019, we rented this RV and we were going to drive down through like Tennessee and like Arkansas and go over through Texas and go to Arizona and like visit my dad down in Arizona and do some hiking and stuff. And right before we left, she got a job like with this marketing event, right? It was like a 1 week, whatever, week and a half marketing event. Paid really well, but it was in Minnesota and it was 2 weekends. And so we changed our trip. We went down, same start, but we went from Arkansas all the way up to Minneapolis. And then we came back down. And then the next week went up to Minneapolis and then over to like Wisconsin and then back home and then to Chicago. So like, but the thing was, it was like a 15-day trip and I taught at 11 or 12 different places. And I was just like, man, like it was cool. Cause like made money on seminars and drop-ins and stuff like that. But we didn't get a ton of hiking in. Like some days it was like drive and train. And I was like, man, we took this like awesome vacation and we vacationed like 1/5 of it, so. It's busy.
So let me ask you this, and this is a hard question to answer. Okay. I don't think I would have any type of good answer for it, but hopefully you do. When you are someone who's like an entrepreneur, you are, you kind of have to like, they say like stay hungry. You have to, and you take opportunities when they're presented and you kind of have to put your head down and work hard a lot. Once you start to get a lot of opportunity, though, how do you choose what is good opportunity to devote your time to? What schools you want to teach at? What seminars do you want to do? I guess I'm more asking, like, at what point do you think you have to stop saying yes to everything and start just choosing what is most important?
Yeah. Excuse me. So there's a lot of ways to answer that question. And I really think it depends on kind of where you're at in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's good to stay hungry, but at the same time, too many irons in the fire. Like you're just, nothing's getting done. So
Mm-hmm.
I think one big lesson I've learned is that sometimes it's better just to focus. So I said, we have like all these businesses that kind of actively run, but my focus is really only on like 2 or 3 of them,
Mm-hmm.
So if you can take it and you can kind of get somebody else to do most of the work,
Uh-huh.
then great. If it's going to take a lot of your attention away from other things that are either, providing you with income or just, mental health,
Mm-hmm.
then, probably it's a good idea to turn it down,
Mm-hmm.
man, like yesterday, actually twice this week, I've gotten calls from different places, like, this new thing where realtors will call and be like, hey, we have an opening that would be perfect for a jiu-jitsu academy. I don't know if you get these at all, but like I started getting these all the time. Like I represent this and that. And we actually just bought this strip mall down here, and man, there's no jiu-jitsu around. And, it'd be really great to have like a jiu-jitsu school. And I'm just like, no.
Uh-huh.
And most of the time I don't even spend my time doing a referral, like, oh yeah, call this guy or call this guy. But like years ago, I might be like, oh yeah, I could run 3 schools.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I can get somebody in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, 2 is hard. It's just,
I run 2 also. I understand.
It's like staffing and stuff. Like I'm in this situation right now where I've taught at IBJJ, our longer running school, the whole time. Right. And, when we opened the second school, one of the leading factors in us opening it was one of my other black belts came to me and said, hey, I think I want to open my own school. I was like, great. How about we hire you to teach at this one? It already has a student base. It's already there. And you're pretty hands off minus the teaching. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked out. Well, then about 6, maybe 7 months. What is this? This is July. Yeah. It's like almost 8 months. Jesus. Almost 8 months ago.
Huh?
He was like, man, my job. He's a full-time electrician. He was having a hard time making it. He's like, man, some nights it's a 2-hour drive to get there. And he was kind of getting burned out on it. And so I've been up there teaching in the evenings full time, and my wife's teaching at our other school. And it's like, while I go, man, I need to get down there like 2 days every week, 2 days every other week, whatever. It's still hard. You just get in the flow of teaching. And it's like, no, man, I started this lesson, on Monday. I'd like to see that whole lesson through on this week. And, even one of the other instructors isn't going to teach it with the exact same like methodology that I would, like point A to point Z, like, so it's hard to step away from a class when you start teaching like, that, but yeah, so I was just talking to him this morning. I was like, all right, like I need you back up there a little more. Like I've got to start making it back down to Greenwood, and we got to make this work. And so, and the thing is, man, I've got other guys I can pull from, but I don't want to be one of those academies that has a different instructor every single night. And there's no flow, and there's no like consistency with what's being taught. And we've got the BJJ Foundation. We've got a really good, like lesson plan. We've got a pretty structured curriculum, but I like to go off curriculum. If we're doing scissor sweeps at night, I'm not going to go, well, we're only doing scissor sweeps. Like, I'm like, oh, here's a scissor sweep. Everybody's mastered it. Great. Let's do these 14 other moves off of it.
Uh-huh.
Not really, maybe 1 or 2, but you know what I mean? So yeah, it's hard, man. Like just, teaching, especially because I think it's so personal too. You know what I mean? Like, students are just drawn to different attitudes and different teaching styles. And some guys like me, some guys don't, like when's your stand-up comedy tour start? And other people are like, you joke too much. I want you screaming at me and cussing at me. And I'm like, no cussing, guys. No cuss, guys, please watch your language in class. There could be a child randomly strolling in off the street. But
so this is a funny note. I run a very similar school to that, one of my purple belts was partnered with his son, who's like 16. And we were doing triangle finishes. And so my purple belt's in the triangle and his son's trying to finish and he's giving him a hard time. And at a point, he flips his son off and I go, hey, I'm I go, hey, I am sick of this. I go, do you think that at home he sees those kind of gestures? And he's like, at first he's like, wait, what? Is he being serious? And he's like, oh, I'm his dad. Yeah. He's like, he really does. And I was like, no, I'm sick of this. You're writing a note to his dad and you're apologizing for obscene gestures to his son. And he's like, yes, sir. I'm very sorry, sir. So when you are, just kind of still on that same note about running just different businesses and stuff, do you find that you go in waves where your focus is more on one or the other, or do you feel like it's kind of balanced at this point?
Man, I would say kind of waves. So like, with the ego, and we actually didn't run one in 2020. I think we ran one in 2019, maybe. We didn't run one this year either. So ego might be done. We don't know. We've been talking about it. But, the tournament, we went from going 6 a year to just 3 a year here in Indianapolis. So you can kind of like ride that wave, right? Like, 3 months out, like, and everything's all scheduled. Okay, 3 months out, we order the flyers. We start the email drip, stuff like that. So that stuff, like you focus a little more on it when it's happening, right? Seminars, you focus on it when it's happening. Women's camp, you focus on it when it's happening. But the school, you're always plugging away because like you want those new people in every single day if possible. Right. So like, there's just kind of a consistent, effort, on those. So I think like with the academies, definitely it's every single day, always focus. Like that's the main focus. That's our main source of income. And then the other stuff is kind of goes in waves. And, with the website stuff, like that's something definitely I should focus on every single day, but it's definitely kind of a more in waves for me. Like it's not tangible, right? It's like, it's up in the cloud. Nobody knows what the cloud is. But so it's not right there in front of me every single day. So I have to make notes and like, hey, to do, make sure you do this every day. But yeah, definitely. And I think, man, you can't focus on more than one thing, right? Like, like focus is I heard a good, description of focus, and basically said focus actually isn't like staring at one point. It's just getting rid of all the other stuff. Right. So it's kind of blocking out everything else. It's not necessarily like just looking at that one thing. It's kind of like putting everything else out of mind.
And that is very true, but it's not like, that's really hard for people to understand. To bring it back to jiu-jitsu, when people are trying to pass the guard, a lot of times when they first start, they're not thinking they're trying to pass the guard. They're just thinking fight, know? But when you can make it easier and you can say, okay, I'm in guard. I need to do this to get out of guard, to get through the guard. And just being able to put those little steps in to kind of to have focus is very hard for people, because not to say we live in an age where people don't have any focus, but we really do, it's
too much stimulation, man. It's like everybody's on their phone all day long. And I was
just about to say, how many people are listening to this podcast right now that are on Facebook or Instagram too? And it's so hard for people to just say, hey, you have my attention. And as an instructor, I think you feel the effects of that even more now, because you can't just show up and just show great technique and great detail. You have to be very engaging and very, not everyone's energetic, but just very engaging. You have to keep people's attention, and it's very hard to do nowadays. If someone was trying to become a coach and trying to learn how to teach, what would be like just one main tip for them? Like, hey, this is where your focus should be as a coach.
Oh man. So I actually have like a little check sheet for all my coaches, like kind of how to run class. But one of my big things is the 3 E's. So every class I want I want the people to get exercise. I want them to get educated. Okay. And I want to entertain them, right? Like you talked about being engaging. So also like just in the information age, we're not just competing with the jiu-jitsu school down the road. We're competing with Gordon Ryan and Craig Jones and like all these like famous guys that are online, and even the guys that aren't online, man. Like every single day, one of my students comes to me and goes, "Hey, I saw this thing on YouTube." I'm like, "Cool, bro." And they're like, "Well, can you help me with it?" I'm like, "Can you send me the URL?" Like, don't you try to teach me what he showed. Like,
I think it's this. Technique. I think it's from half guard, and you're like, it's from the back, dude. How do you? It's a different move.
Yeah, I always tell guys, I'm like, man, I have no problem with my guys getting on YouTube and watching things, but if you have a question, I need to see what they're showing. I don't want your version, because if you were showing it right, you wouldn't be asking me questions, you know. But yeah, just, you know, like I said, just entertain, educate, and exercise. So like, you know, it's jiu-jitsu, man. We're always getting exercise, but we can always throw little extras in there, right? Like I personally don't do warm-ups. Little shrimping here and there. Like every once in a while, I'll do a warm-up that's part of the move, right? Like, all right, guys, we're going to do this little guard pass drill. We're going to do, you know, Toriando pass. We're going to do lateral movement, stuff like that. So like, that's my version of a warm up. I feel like when we're doing the actual techniques, like we're moving, we're getting warmed up. Like if you need to sweat a little more, increase your pace. But then we'll throw other things in like, okay, all right, we're rolling. Cool. All right, now everybody up. We're going to do 30-second grip fightings for 10 minutes, you know, all right, down. Now we're doing 1 minute bad escape or bad position drills, guys escaping. So you mix it up and it's like, all right, back to rolling, 5-minute rounds. So you can mix it up and just kind of create a little variable in there. That way it's not like, all right, guys, here's the technique for the day. Okay, 5-minute rounds, go. And then I'm off on my phone, right? Like, yeah, that's another thing. Stay off your damn phones. If you're the coach, don't be on your phone. I carry my phone with me because I take pictures of the class. I video the class sometimes, you know what I mean? But like, it's usually in my belt, or like if you see my phone in my hand, I'm probably taking pictures. I'm not playing on Instagram, you know? And even then I post later. I never do like I'm typing and stuff, you know, it's like, there's the picture. I'll post it later tonight, or I'll put it in my folder on my computer or something. But yeah, I think that's a good start. Like just kind of just pick how you engage with the people that are there in front of you.
So right now you're probably, with the listeners that I have, you're probably in a safe space saying that you don't do warm-ups, but there are people that'll try to fight you if you tell them that you don't do warm-ups. The reason I say you're in a safe space is because one of my solo episodes are warm-ups are stupid, and people wanted to fight me. Yeah. They were so, and I wasn't saying like, hey, it is illogical to warm your body up. I was saying, hey, running around the mats and jogging and doing butt kickers and stuff it's not really jiu-jitsu. Yeah. You could just warm up doing technique.
Yeah. Oh, and the crazy thing is, man, like, I don't know where the warm up came from. How many schools have you been to and they all do the exact same thing?
Yeah.
Every one of them, like, and not just jiu-jitsu schools. Every judo school I've been to, every wrestling class I've been to, every jiu-jitsu, it's like we run around the mat, we inside shuffle, we outside shuffle, we do butt kickers, we do high knees, we shrimp, we do front rolls and back rolls, and a couple little variations of some things. And it's like, where did this thing come from?
And especially, why is the shrimp the most important technique in jiu-jitsu? Like, why is that? That's the only technique that anyone does, except for closed guard arm bars, which again, nobody hits. But, you know, because they don't drill them right. They drill them with their legs just flying in the wind. And so why do we decide to stick with like, hey, the two things that you need in jiu-jitsu, you need to be able to shrimp without someone on top of you. And you need to be able to just like kind of like throw your leg in a very looping motion to hit a closed guard armbar. And
you do them faster that way. You do them so fast.
You can do 100 reps and, you know, you can do 100 reps in 5 minutes on those. And so, I don't know. That's a good question. I need to find somebody who is like at my school and is in college, which I don't have anybody in my school that's in college, but nobody's educated there. But I need to find somebody that's got to do some type of research paper on the history of something, because I want to know the history of jiu-jitsu warm-ups. So, and if anybody is listening and you are wanting to take on the history of jiu-jitsu warm-ups, be sure to let the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show know. I need to know where these things come from. Like the episode of Family Guy where they're trying to find out where all the dirty jokes come from. And so it's like very similar. We got to go on that journey to find out where jiu-jitsu warm-ups started. Do you in your curriculum, is your curriculum repeating? You were talking about how you kind of have a curriculum, or is it like kind of how does your curriculum work?
Yeah. So very basically, like 6 basic positions in jiu-jitsu times 2, right? Top and bottom. So you've got guard, mount, side control, knee on belly, north and south, rear mount, right? And then, so we look at it. How do you get into that position? How do you maintain that position? What basic attacks do we have from that position? And then on the other end, how do you prevent that position? How do you prevent the basic attacks from that position? And how do you escape that position? And then we also have wrestling and judo and some basic stuff in there too. So, and then, guard's a little more expansive. Like there's a few like, all right, guys, here's a very couple basic butterfly sweeps. And here's, open guard, closed guard, whatever. A couple of lasso things, just some very basic things in there that aren't just like the standard cross choke armbar triangle. So it's repeating, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, okay, this is our foundation. Like, these are the things you need to be really good at in order to get really good at jiu-jitsu. Like if you have little cracks in this foundation or chunks missing, your jiu-jitsu is going to suffer in the long haul. Right. I've got there's like 6 months of the foundation, just all berimbolos. That's and lapel guard. The other 6 months is lapel guard. So it's a year curriculum, berimbolo and lapel guard.
Genius, dude. What happens if you get in side control, coach? Don't go there. Got it.
I always love that answer too. Like, well, yeah, I know I don't want him to be there, but I've been training for 3 weeks. Like, how do I get out when they're going to get there? How do I get out when they do?
I always love to yell it to my guys while they're in submissions. Hey, try not to be there. Okay. Try your best to not, or I'll say like, if you're in a triangle, I'll be like, hey, try your best to not be James Clingerman right now. Just imagine you're somebody else and maybe you'll get out. I don't know. Do you let me see what my time's at. All right. So I'm
not in a hurry, by the way. So
me either, man. I'm a jiu-jitsu coach. We were just complaining about being busy and stuff. It's all a farce. I don't run any other businesses. It's just, I teach a few jiu-jitsu classes a night or a week, and that's it. I just hang out at home, talk to people on Zoom. Right. Do you, in your curriculum, do you change it ever, or has it been able to kind of keep a structure? And the reason I ask this is because I actually have a really similar structure to my curriculum I've been using for the last 3 years. And I was just curious as to, do you find a point where you need to kind of change it?
It's changed a few times. What I find is it kind of evolves as opposed to like, oh man, like there was a couple things I was like, I don't want to, that's a little too advanced, or man, like nobody ever ends up in that spot. Like taking a few things out, and then just as time has gone, like, okay, let's add a few things in, but overall, like the leg lock section, kind of changed a little bit. Like as my leg locks got better, I was like, oh, okay, let's look at this. And we just added just a couple details more than anything, or I've changed the order I've taught something in, but like, man, I used to teach this move before these, but I feel like that move goes better at the end of this. And if you actually look at my paper, like it's all typed up and beautiful. And then just, there's like scribbles all over it and arrows and like stars. And my coach, when he started teaching endurance, I gave him, a new copy, and he was like, no, he goes, I want a copy of the one you use. And I was like, well, that's got all my marks on it. And he's like, yeah, I know. Yeah. He's like, I want your notes on the curriculum. I was like, okay, cool. So
I want an invite to the madness that is your brain, like, oh, okay. You ask for it though. All right. Do you, with running 2 schools, do you find that you do have to have a lot of other instructors, or are you and your wife able to kind of?
So oddly enough, we've got more instructors at the new school, which has probably way less classes and way less students. But we've got a 5:30 a.m. class, which one of our one of our old coaches started, and he actually just moved back to Japan. So one of my black belts took that class. So we have a 5:30 a.m. class, and that's not something I will ever be at. And then my wife teaches a 9 a.m. class, and then we have another coach that teaches a noon class. And then I come in and I teach in the evenings. But then our older, like our longer running school, I guess it's older, right? So like I teach a 10 a.m. class 2 days a week. I teach a noon class 2 days a week, which the noon class was not mine. We had another coach in there who I said, if you start this class, you cannot quit on me. And he ran it for, I don't know how many months. And then he was like, I need a big boy job and quit. Yeah. So I ended up taking that one over too. So yeah, I do like a 10 a.m. and a noon. And then my wife she's got 2 women's only classes, like a takedown class. And then she's teaching most of the co-ed jiu-jitsu classes. And then we've got a couple of kickboxing coaches. So yeah, we teach the majority of the classes, but I do have a couple other people that assist. Like, there's some like lifting kettlebell classes, things. I don't know.
Okay. So yeah, I get the people wanting to start a class and then not following through with it. You got a tornado going on? Is that?
I think it's a fire truck. I thought it was my dog howling.
Okay. My dog loves to bark during podcasts. I don't know why. He must not be fired up about the James Clingerman episode. I don't know what's up with him, dude. He's usually
dogs love me.
Yeah, maybe that's why he's not barking. Maybe he's like, I like this guy.
He's listening.
Yeah. Finally, you bring on the first black belt that you've ever met, Dad. Come on, get it together.
He barked at Vives.
He did. He did.
Suck it, Mark.
He just doesn't like Asian people, man. You know how he is. You know how dogs are. He's like, hey, my dad's the only Asian I like, and that's because he's half. Like I don't deal with this. I'm not cool with this guy. But on the note of just kind of where we ended up with it, just running schools and kind of all the things that you do you have any big kind of goals that you have?
Oh, honestly, man, like I just turned 42 on like 2-3 days. What is it? Friday? Yeah. Tuesday. I just turned 42.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. So man, I would honestly like to be less hands-on by the time I'm 45.
Yeah.
So I have
in everything.
In the physical day-to-day teaching, I would like to slip back more into just a management role and focus a little more on the online stuff. Especially with all the COVID things, that whole last year, man, like I was teaching out of my basement twice a week. You know what I mean? And it was cool because I got to reach a lot more people. I had people from all over the world getting on, and doing classes. And like, it's cool because it like, now I have all these people I'm talking to on Facebook and like, I realized that like anything could happen. Like I could have a fire and my school burned down. Right. So, but probably the internet's not going to, it could shut down, I guess, but yeah. It'll go back up maybe.
If the internet shuts down, I don't think that money is going to be our problem.
Exactly.
I don't think that, I think we're going to be using jiu-jitsu a lot more aggressively anyway. So I think we'll be, exactly. So what are kind of your steps to get there by 45?
Oh man, I don't know. That's my problem. I'm just too tired. I'm just sleepy all the time. I can't plan things. Yeah, no, it really, man, it's just a really make sure I've got my guys that are teaching like caught up on the way I want things taught and like how a class should be run and stuff like that. And just really start allocating. Like I'm kind of a control freak and like, unless I'm like on vacation, like not in the state of Indiana or doing, like I never like ask anybody to teach for me unless I'm like deathly ill, which almost never happens. Although I found out for some reason I've had pie. Like I don't eat a lot of junk food, but I've had pie 3 times in probably the past, 2 months. And I've gotten sick all 3 times.
What kind of pie?
It varies. So I almost always eat.
I thought you had been eating the same pie the last 3 months.
No.
That's probably what it is, dude. I'm thinking it's probably a little old at this point.
Yeah. It looks like broccoli on top. I don't know. No, just like it was 3. So like one was like a store-bought pie from like a peach pie from this store. I got massively sick, horrible. And then like, I don't know, 3 weeks later, I had a much smaller piece of a different kind of pie from a different store. And I got sick again. And then my birthday, somebody made me a homemade strawberry rhubarb pie. Oof. And I was like, cool. And I ate way too much of that. And I just got a little sick. So like, It was much better, but yeah, I'm like, all right, I can eat ice cream. Apparently I had a bowl of ice cream last night. It felt good. So,
so yeah, it's just a matter of finding what dessert you can have.
Right. Yeah.
I get that. That's what all my life's about too, dude. I get
which dessert does not.
And I can have all of them. You know, I found out that I can do all of them.
Found out doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah. You know, only thing is I just keep competing heavier and heavier and heavier. And I'm going to be the only 5'10" guy at ultra heavy one day. And I'm not looking forward to it.
Man, right now I'm lightweight. So
Are you really?
Dude, I almost always compete middle. Sometimes I compete middle heavy, but I never weigh that heavy. Like I walk around about 175-ish maybe. And man, I've kind of focused on eating more lately, and it's actually made my weight go down.
Really?
So yeah, the other, I think maybe just kick my metabolism up or something. I definitely do not get enough calories like in my day-to-day life. But the other day, man, I had one of my guys was cutting weight for an MMA fight. He came over, hit the sauna for an hour. I've got a little sauna in my basement. And then later on, one of my other guys was like, hey, you want a sauna session tonight? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Why not? So, and usually I'll just I'll do 1 2-hour session. Well, that day I did a 1-hour session, and then like 4 hours later did another 1 hour. And man, the next morning I woke up, I was 160.
Oh,
so,
how hot was the sauna?
It gets about between 140, 150.
All right. It's
an infrared.
Those are so nice.
Yeah, they're cool. But yeah, man, like my weight's it's been kind of naturally low. So I don't know. I think it's going to be lightweight from here on out.
All right, man.
Well, for a little while. I don't know about forever. We'll see.
I think I could do lightweight if I cut my leg off. But I don't think I could do it anymore. I used to do it when I was a purple belt. I used to do lightweight, but I was young. I was not that I'm not young still, but I was younger. I was a kid. I was 19 in 20. I think 19 was when I stopped doing light and I moved to middle, and I stayed there for a very long time. And then one day I just was like, I am so sick of making middle. I probably still could make middle. I'm just tired of it, man. I do too much to add diet in, to add not eating to my, to what I, to my lifestyle.
Right.
So I made the joke to you before we started. We're actually getting to this point now where I said, hey, how funny would it be if I bring on the legendary Midwest black belt who got shot in the face and didn't bring it up at all, like just didn't acknowledge it. But I guess we're to this.
Thanks for bringing that up. That's a sensitive, delicate subject. You're a jerk.
Oh, I'm sorry. How about we just end it? We'll just end it right here.
Goodbye. Cool.
So
yeah, go ahead.
In that sense, you got shot in the face.
Yeah, it sucked. It hurt.
Yeah. I am sure. What was are you cool with kind of explaining the situation and everything with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So
all right.
So I'll just go. I'll tell the whole story. It's a long story.
Okay.
It's very long.
Okay.
And I've only told it like 700,000 times. So yeah, man, I was 20 years old. It was 2000, February 20th of 2000. And, lived on the north side of Indianapolis. My wife and I AJ and I weren't married at the time, but we were together. And, we had actually left our apartment going to my mother's house, but we took separate cars. I think for some reason she didn't have to work the next day. I don't know if February 21st is a holiday, but she didn't have to work.
All right.
I don't know. But yeah, man. So like I had ordered a pizza, so I was taking the back road, and so she took the interstate because it's faster, obviously. But I'm sitting at the stoplight, as you do when the light's red. You just sit there and you don't go.
Well, and not in St. Louis. Yeah, not where I'm from. You don't do that. But I get where you're from. People do that.
Yeah. Not nice area of Indianapolis. You tend to stop, which I guess I shouldn't have. Right. But no, man. So I'm sitting at this light and there's 2 left-hand turn lanes. Car pulls up next to me. Don't look at it. Don't think anything of it. And, just out of the corner of my eye, I looked like somebody waved. I'm like literally just pulled out of my apartment complex. So I assumed it was like a neighbor, even though I didn't really talk to any of the neighbors. I look over and there's this dude in the passenger seat and he's like just double flipping me off, cussing me out, just like obviously drunk, just completely belligerent, and I was like, well, okay. I ignored him, and man, he kept on. And then I see his girlfriend. So she was driving, right? So she like leans up and she like gives me the like, hey, don't mess with them type motion. I was like, okay. I didn't really plan on it, but, if he wants to get out of the car, it's going to be a bad day. And I didn't say that obviously, but so I sit there and then she pulls the car up a little bit. So we can't really see each other anymore. And I remember him going, you think you're a hard ass? And in my mind, I was like, I mean, kind of.
Yeah, maybe a little.
Maybe I'm, like 20, do jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, had some MMA fights, but I was like, oh man, I'm just like eyes forward, So what had happened, and like I didn't find this out till much later. So she was actually pregnant with his kid, and he pulls this 9mm gun out and he points it at her stomach and he says, back the car up. So obviously she did, she's not wanting to get shot.
Yeah.
So she backs the car up and so we can kind of see each other. And as the car comes back, I was like, what is happening? He pulls this gun out and he goes, are you afraid of this? And I was like, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Most definitely. Do not like guns. Like, I think maybe at that point I had shot like a rifle at, not at something like in the air or something.
Yeah.
But, yeah. And man, like pretty much as soon as he pulled the gun, I was like going to run the light and just continue straight. Didn't even have time to get my foot off the gas. Like, it hit me right in the cheekbone. So right under my left eye. It knocked me, like it went through my window. So it's February in Indiana. Like it's freezing out. I've got my coat on, got my windows up, the heat on, and, man, it hit me just, like I said, right in my cheekbone, and it literally just drove its way into my skull. But it knocked me over into my passenger seat. Actually the seatbelt retractor, like the thing that stops you, when you try to lean up and look around, it broke that. So,
oh my God,
that was the kind of impact, right? Like that thing stops you when you're in a car accident. And, but yeah, so it broke that. So I'm laying there and I'm like, blind and deaf. Like I just have this loud, like screaming siren noise in my head. And, I can't see. Like I'm blind out of both eyes. Like I don't know if it was just the impact of it all or if it was, blood in my eye. I have no idea. But, so I laid there and it may be a second, if that, but my thought process is like, well, I'm blind and I'm deaf, so I don't know what's going on. Like this guy could literally be walking up to finish me off. I could literally have bullets like hitting next to me. So I just hit the gas, So
you're aware, you're cognizant of what's going on. You just can't.
Yeah. Just all of a sudden I have, no vision, no hearing. And, so I'm like on the gas, I'm just honking the horn. I'm driving. So I just continued straight and I keep blinking and I'm starting to get little bits of light, like headlights and, or taillights or whatever. And, I ended up probably drove like a block, if that, and I rear-ended a guy. So at this point I'm now on the, overpass, right? So like there was a car trying to get onto the interstate there and I rear-ended him, like just kind of clipped him. And I get out of the car and he's already on his cell phone. So this is 2000, right? Like I didn't have a cell phone. That was for rich people. Does
he know? Does he realize what happened?
I don't think so. I think he was probably just peed off, like some freaking drunk just rear-ended me, Yeah. So I walk up and I'm like, I lay on his, like kind of leaned on his hood and just, man, the amount of blood that was pouring out of my head was I was like, I can't do this for much longer.
Yeah.
I'm going to bleed out. But at the same time, I was like, man, I just hit this guy's car. Now I'm bleeding on it. Like that poor guy. So, I think I was just like, man, I just got shot. Please call the police. And I kneeled down and like, man, right as I kneeled down, there was a sheriff's deputy and he was getting off the interstate onto that street. And I look up and I see him walking toward me, and he's like, I go, some effort, that light just shot me in the face. And he's like, he just kind of stops. He looks at me and he goes, give me some ID and some phone numbers. And I'm like, I chucked my wallet at him. And oddly enough, I went to the bank like months and months and months later. And I remember pulling my ID out to like give to the teller, because I never go through a drive-through. I just went through a drive-through for some reason. And like I still had like blood all over my license. Like 6 months later, you know, I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
I was like, just a minute. I'm like trying to scrub it off, you know. But yeah, man. So like, gave him my license, and gave him my mom's number. So my mom was out of town, so that's why we were leaving. We were going to her house to watch my little sister, and so I gave them that number, and I think my dad's number. My dad had just moved. He was like renting a space from some lady, so like I couldn't remember his number, you know. And I'm shot in the head. So,
yeah.
So I'm like, come on, guy. Like, really? Yeah. Phone numbers?
Yeah.
Luckily, it was before cell phones. That way, like, you know, I didn't just pull it up. I mean, I guess luckily that I knew numbers. Yeah. But anyway, man, like I'm sitting there.
And could remember them.
Yeah, exactly. Like I
time.
don't know anybody's number right now.
I got one number for you. It's 911.
Yeah.
Get me there, man.
Yeah. I'm like, don't you have a little thing you can call it in? Just But yeah, so like, and then another deputy comes up. She's like, lay down. And they get in this little argument over if I should stay where I'm at or lay down. I'm like, you are stressing me out. I'm going to stay where I'm at, because
the other guy's like, no, make him walk it off.
Yeah.
He should run sprints right now.
He's like, get up, rub some dirt on it. Just back that sucker. But yeah, the ambulance got there, and yeah, man, like once I got in the ambulance, they cut my clothes off, and I was like, these are my new jeans and my favorite shirt. And they were like trying to cut my coat, and I was like, no. And I was like,
let me take.
Yeah, I ripped my coat off, and they're like, stop moving. I'm like fighting them, like, do not cut my coat. This is a down. It's got goose feathers in it. Like, leave me alone. It's warm. But yeah, man, went to the hospital at night, and they ended up, they did they put like a hammock under my eye. Right. So they couldn't get the bullet out or anything. My eye, I guess, had fallen. I don't know. I never saw. I wish I had like video of this stuff, but they put like basically like a hammock under my eye to kind of hold it in place, and then two steel plates in my cheek to reconstruct the cheekbone. And the doctor that did that, like, he's actually still my ear doctor to this day. He I still have issues with my left ear, so I still see him. But I remember, I don't know, a year or two ago, I was like, hey man, it's been like 19-20 years or whatever, and he goes, oh man, he's from Nigeria. He's got the big deep accent, you know, but he's like, he goes, oh man, I was fresh out of med school. I was just a baby. They should not have let me do that. I was like, cool. He's like, oh, I'm like, well, I guess it worked out. He's like, yeah, no, it worked out. They should not have let me do that. but yeah, man, like 2.5, 3 days in the hospital, and they just kind of made sure, like, you know, my vitals were good. And yeah, the bullet's still in there. Missed my carotid by less than a centimeter. And so yeah, I'm pretty much blind in my left eye, like 90, probably 95, 96% blind. I get a little bit of light in there, but like, I can't hold fingers in front of my face and even tell you like how many they're there. Like, maybe if I hold them like a coat, if you move them, if you touch my eyeball with them.
If somebody tells you how many fingers are up, you're like, oh yeah, I agree. Yeah, that sounds right.
You're probably right.
So in that situation, you're at this point of, you know, kind of like life or death. What's going through your mind?
Jiu-Jitsu techniques. Like, it sounds like a joke, but actually I was doing that because, you know, I had never been shot in the face before. I didn't know. Yeah. I was like, oh man, like, and I didn't know where the bullet went. I didn't know, you know what I mean? Like, I really didn't know where the impact was. It felt like my head exploded. Yeah. So I was like, man, I wonder if I have brain damage. I wonder if I'm bleeding out. Like, if I'm dying, like, cause like they say, like, man, only like 5% of people that get shot in the head live. And most guys are not as, you know, not as well off as I am. But yeah, so like I'm laying there, and like I just start going, well, let's think of some stuff. Let's try to access some different parts of my brain. Right. Like, so like I just said, I started doing some basic math problems and then I was like, okay, all right, cool. What about jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah. So yeah, when I do an armbar from guard, I swing my leg way around and I do it real super fast, right?
And
like,
then here's the shrimp right out of it.
Yep. They're like, what are you? Oh, he's seizing. I was like, no, I'm shrimping.
And they're like, oh, he remembers 95% of jiu-jitsu then.
Yeah.
He knows all of it. Give him his black belt. Give him his black belt.
Cancel the ambulance. But yeah, so I was sitting there doing math and jiu-jitsu, like just trying to figure out, like, I don't know, man. I'm sure I was in shock a little bit, but it was just, I was like, all right, like my brain seems to be working. Probably means I'm bleeding to death. So yeah, that's what was going through my head.
Yeah, literally, man. That's a good story. That is a crazy thing. Did they catch the guy?
Yeah. So he worked. So first off, he shot me and he's like, get me out of here. As you do, I think.
Yeah.
When you shoot
Usually when you shoot people, I would assume that would be your first response. Maybe I should leave,
You're like, oh no, what have I done? Which actually, by the way, is what, when we went to court, however long later, that was what get me out of here changed into was, oh no, what have I done?
Oh no, what have I done?
That was,
oh, woe is me.
Yeah. Oh man, we can talk about that too. But God, it was the trial and stuff and sentencing was crazy. But yeah, so his girlfriend, she drove him back to their apartment and he called his like mom or stepmom or whatever. And her, knowing that this guy's an idiot, she was like, well, come to my house and turn yourself in. I think she thought he would do something dumb and the police would kill him. Yeah. Which probably would have worked out for the better for all of us. But on the way to his mother's house, he was like, hey, I used to work here at this bar. Take me there. So she dropped him off and called the cops and was like, hey, I'm done. Here's the guy that just shot somebody, blah, blah, blah. But he's sitting at the bar with this guy who I believe was from out of town. He was like traveling for business and he was just there to have like a quick drink. And oh boy, like starts telling him like how life's precious and pulls out a magazine from his gun and starts like handing him bullets out of the magazine. And, but they said the next round in the chamber was actually a hollow point. So I guess I'm glad I got shot with the first one and not the next. Yeah. Glad I was the first guy he shot that night. But yeah, so I guess he was talking to this guy forever and they said cops just kind of came in and started like kind of flagging people out of the restaurant. Two guys walked up, snatched him up and dragged him away to jail. And he ended up getting sentenced to 54 years, no parole.
Wow.
And so we're like 21 years in now.
This is a little, I guess, a little deep of a question, but what are your feelings towards that guy?
Man, I don't know. So I'm one of those guys. Like I don't have hate, right? I don't really hate anybody, but at the same time, like I feel that certain people shouldn't be allowed to live, or like it's not a hateful thing. Just if you weren't here, the world would be a better place. You know what I mean? So what I'll say, like when it happened, I was like, we don't need to go to trial. We don't need to do all this stuff. Lock us in a room for 10 minutes and whatever happens, happens. And nobody gets any more charges pressed on them. Just give me 10 minutes alone.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
That's not too much to ask.
I don't think so.
Yeah. I think that saves a lot more money on a trial. I think that.
And stress. Like I will tell you, fighting to the death in a enclosed room would be a lot more stressful than just getting up in front of people and like talking about like this guy shoot me in the face and then going to sentencing where like his whole family's talking about how he's a great guy and he would never hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Don't worry about all those other violent, violent charges he has against him and all the horrible things he's done and all the people he's hurt, but he would never hurt anybody. And, he wrote some poetry when he was in jail. Yeah. And, I'm pretty sure he just took some songs that were already on the radio and changed a couple words, but same.
Yeah. I didn't have mace, but I shot him in the face, like it just really, that's great poetry, buddy.
That's pretty good. You got to write that down.
Yeah. That was quick. That was a quick one. Yeah, man, that is, Is that something that was hard for you to, obviously it's like a super traumatic experience. Was it hard for you to deal with over time after?
Uh, Man, ultimately, I think I took it very well. You know what I mean? I was very of the mind of like, hey, this has happened. What do I need to do to get through it and make the best of it, right? And that's kind of how I look at most situations. Now, were there nights when I bawled my eyes out? Of course. You know what I mean? Like there were many, many times where AJ and I were sitting on the couch crying. So yeah, I mean, definitely an emotional roller coaster, right? But ultimately, like, I was back in the jiu-jitsu room 2 weeks later. Like I kept training. I competed 6 months later. I did MMA. I did an 8-man tournament 11 months later. Like I just kind of looked at it and I went, it happened. I can't do anything about it. So let's just work with what it is. And then people put me on their podcast, they're like, hey, guy who got shot in the face.
Yeah.
You can still talk. You want to be on a podcast.
Let's talk about that. That is, man, that is such a crazy situation. At this point, do you feel like you still deal, obviously you have physical things that you still deal with because of it. Do you feel like you still have mental things that you deal with because of it?
No.
Yeah.
So as I let out a sigh and say, no, not really, man. Like 20 plus years. So I've lived with it longer than I lived without it at this point in my life. Right. Sometimes, so I still have problems with my ear. Like I have a permanent tube. Like, man, I almost always have an ear infection. The damn thing itches all the time. Like I have balance problems sometimes. Every once in a while, man, when that thing itches, like I'll just be like,
yeah,
I'll get like a little rage while I'm like scratching it and trying not to ram a Q-tip through my eardrum. Like, just stop itching just for a second. I don't know if you've ever had like just an insanely like horrible ear infection that itches like inside of your head. It's miserable. So just imagine that going on for like 20 something years. Like it's no fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, like really that sets me off more than anything where I'm just like, God dang it.
Yeah.
Why does it itch? But yeah, overall, like I said, man, it's been part of my life longer than it wasn't. I got shot when I was 20. I'm 42 now. So, I wouldn't say I have any residual issues from it. I don't freak out when people pull up next to me at a stoplight or anything like that.
You don't stop at stoplights anymore.
Yeah. Just blow straight through them all the time. I will say one night I was sitting at a stoplight and this pickup truck pulled up next to me, and I do look over more now. I will say that I definitely look over, and cause now like I just have a whole blind side. Right. I look over and there's this female in the passenger seat and a guy in the driver's seat, very good looking, very attractive female. And she's
I thought you were going to say the guy. I was like, okay. I don't know why that's part of the story. All right.
Well, let me get to it.
Oh, sorry.
No, but like, just real attractive girl, but she's like talking to me. And I was like, what? Like, I was like, I can't hear, roll your window down. And she was just like pointing and she's like smiling. She's not being aggressive. She's just like, blah, blah. But it was like very talky. And the guy is just like eyes forward, not, and I'm like, like it was just this little bit of like what's happening right now, you know what I mean? And like maybe she was hitting on me, maybe she was telling me like my headlight was out, I don't know. But I remember that day I was just like, I'm getting uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like come on, light, turn,
I don't want to
like, I'm like, I don't want to, whatever's going on with you, I don't want to deal with you. I want to leave, but then on the other end of that spectrum, man, this happened like just 2 months ago. I was driving to teach, and I'm at a stop sign. Well, there's a car in front of me at the stop sign, and I've got plenty of distance between us. And I was listening to a podcast. I'm just sitting there and then I kind of noticed that this guy wasn't moving. We've been sitting there for a while. And as I look up, he's like, I can see him staring at me through his rear view. And he's got his window down and he's like flipping me off and stuff. And I was like, what? And I look and there's no other cars. I'm like, what? Like I'm behind you at a stop sign. I'm not like, my eyes are down. I'm just like, didn't do any, and And like, I didn't even have that thought until later on. I was like, man, this guy at the stop sign just flipped me off. And they're like, oh man, that's kind of like when you got shot. And I was like, oh yeah. Yeah. Like it wasn't like a PTSD moment or anything like that. It didn't even register. So, yeah, I think overall, like emotionally, I'm pretty past that point of like freakouts or whatever. Now I guess if a guy is sitting next to me at a stoplight and starts flipping me off and asking me if I'm a hard ass and maybe pulls a gun, then probably I'll have a response to that.
Yeah. I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. Me too. And I didn't go through it the first time.
I'm going to hit the gas a little sooner now. But yeah,
I get it, man. I get it. So, on a change of note, I always finish the podcast with the same question. Okay. And so can't finish a pod. It's not even possible. I can't even post a podcast unless we finish it with this question. Now,
I don't remember the question, but I remember listening to the podcast and going, oh, I need to prepare for that question. I have an answer in mind. I have no idea what this question is.
It'll come. It's a pretty simple question. Okay. So the thought is, I am at a James Clingerman seminar.
Okay.
He shouldn't be doing the seminar. He should probably be on vacation, but he's doing the seminar right now. And let's say we're at question and answer. I'm a no stripe blue belt. I raise my hand. I say, James, I suck at jiu-jitsu. How do I suck less at jiu-jitsu?
It's a great question. So I actually was going to bring this up when we talked about focus. So I'm really big on creating a game plan, a training game plan, and a competitive game plan if you're a competitor. So I actually have paper sheets printed up. And what I tell my guys to do is take 3 or 4 positions, top 3 or 4 positions, bottom. So top, like let's say guard, half guard, side control, mount, for example, right? And then within each of those positions, I pick 2 to 4 techniques that I'm going to focus on during rolling. Okay. So, guard pass 1, 2, and 3, half guard pass 1 and 2, side control submission 1 and 2, plus how to get to mount submission 1 and 2, whatever. Okay. So we come up with those, have a predetermined game plan of these are the moves I'm going to hit while rolling. It's all I'm going to focus on. I come to class. I get to class early. I grab a partner. I go, let me drill through my game plan. I hit every move in my game plan. You can probably do it in 5 minutes, right? Get it fresh in my mind. Plus I have my sheet there that I can, use as a resource, like in between rounds. And when I go, I very intentionally put myself in those positions, and I very intentionally go for the moves in my game plan. Okay. So number one, we get better at doing the moves. We find common defenses or problems when I go for those particular moves, so I can later on make adjustments. Maybe I'm really good at one of those moves already, so I can either add to it a little bit later on, or I can just take that out and put something else in its place. Okay. Depending on what kind of game plan we're training. If it's a tournament game plan, it's all A game stuff. And maybe some F game, right? Like I'm gonna make sure I'm getting out of some bad spots, but just training wise, it's all stuff I'm not very good at. Or if I'm pretty new, I'm going to put a couple things in that I definitely know that I can do somewhat well. That way there's an element of a success while rolling, right? I don't want to fail 100% of the time, all the time. But the best thing that I like about having a written game plan and training that way is, and you kind of almost mentioned earlier, like guard. Okay. I get the question all the time. They go, Coach, man, how do I pass someone's guard? I'm having trouble passing guard. And my first question every single time is, what passes are you using? And they go, I don't know, man. I'm just having a hard time. Well, I know why you're having a hard time. Right? Because you're not doing any, you're not trying any real passes. So if you have specific passes that you can show me, hey, this is what I'm trying to do, these are the things that are happening, we can troubleshoot. And now I can go, oh man, like you need to, this elbow needs to be locked out. You need to staple that leg more. You need to put more pressure on him. You need to move a little faster, that knee's coming in. Well, guess what? There's too much space here. Right. So not only are you focused on what you're doing, but you have that, like, man, like some guys just take notes in their phone. I use a literal piece of paper. I actually have like a little file folder. People can keep one in. I'll make copies for them. They can take one home. They can keep one at the gym.
That's cool.
They take pictures of them, whatever you need to like keep it fresh in your mind. But, I've had game plans where I'm working through them and I'm sitting there going, everything's going great. And then I end up in, let's say half guard, and I'm like, crap, man, I don't remember what I was wanting to do from here. Like a new pass was I don't know. So you move on. And then after that round, you come back and you go, you look at it and you go, oh yeah. It was the whatever pass that I saw somebody else do. Right. So then the next round I come in and I'm like straight to half guard. Like maybe the guard pass was there. Maybe I'm already in side control, whatever. I go, nope, we're fighting a half guard. And then the hard thing is, like, I tell guys, like, when you're rolling in class, it's not about winning. It's about hitting the things you're focusing on. Right. Like if I can get a sweep, I've been working, or, submission or whatever, a back take, like that's a win for that class, for that round. Right. Like I don't give out cash awards. I don't give out medals or trophies at the end of class. All the reward is what you've done. How much better have you gotten during that time? So just have a game plan, stick to it, come back and troubleshoot it later. I think that's the biggest way. That's the way I got better, man. When, like I said, when I started my school as a blue belt, and my like black belt instructor lived in Brazil. I barely ever saw him. You know what I mean? So like literally I would send him VHS tapes and he would send me back VHS tapes, and we would talk through it was called ICQ. It was like an instant messenger. Like that's how we communicated for the most part. And like it was like typing and VHS tapes, and so right off the bat, like I didn't have like a real structured game plan, but it was like I would write down everything I was wanting to work. Like, okay, like, all right, I need to do these half guard things, and then these half guard things lead into these butterfly things. So I'm going to focus on these butterfly things next month, but this month is all half guard. And then month 3, I'm going to put them all together, So I didn't play top, right? Like I was like, everything I'm doing is focused on bottom. If I end up on top after I get my sweep, cool. Guess what? I pull guard again. But now I like having the diversity of having, just a few things top, a few things bottom. I think it helps a lot.
I like that. I think that is, honestly, I have multiple episodes on the podcast that I just try to hammer focus. We always call it the victim of 1,000 moves. So many people think that more knowledge is what they need. And a lot of times it's not. It's just, they just need to decide to try to get good at something.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I see that at black belt a lot, because like, as you start getting better and better at jiu-jitsu, you start seeing more, right? Like I always tell guys, I'm like, man, the more jiu-jitsu I learn, the more I realize I don't know. And there's so much information out there. And it's like, hey, what's in your game plan? Well, I've got these like 475 moves from this. And then when I'm here, I've got these 89 moves. And it's like, no, dude, like at your level, like take something you're really good at, something you've got like a 12 move block that you're fantastic at, and add like 2 things to that. And then do 2 things here and 2 things there and 2 things here. And you're going to be way better.
And that's, it's hard for people to get that though, that it's just like, you cannot be great at everything. Like you just can't. You can only be great at very, very few things, I mean, unless you're training for a really, really long time. It's so much harder for people that try to get good at everything at once. And my buddy John Thomas always puts it, jiu-jitsu is like 50 different mini games that have their own rules and their own rule sets. And he said, and everyone tries to learn them all at once and like get good at them all at once, instead of just like, hey, I'm going to get good at this one game and positional spar it and train it when I'm doing my live rounds, try to get into this position a lot. Probably a lot of it has to do with that the focus is winning a lot of the time. That is kind of what people think about is, did I get submitted? Did I submit people? That shows if I am good or not, at jiu-jitsu. Yeah. And it just ain't like that,
Well, that's why you see like these white belts, like just cranking on people's necks. They're just like, just tap,
it's just a
squeezing and stuff. And like kids, like, man, the other night I spent half the class going, stop squeezing his neck, get a position. Stop squeezing his neck. Get your hooks in. Get your hooks in. No, let go of his neck. Get seatbelt grip. Hooks. Get your hooks.
Uh-huh.
Hey, make eye contact with me. Okay, you can hear me? Yes, I see your head shaking. Get rear mount. No, for real. Like, put your hooks in. Stop squeezing his head. Stop squeezing his head. I'm gonna put your hooks in, and it's gonna be with broken ankles.
Everybody who's taught a kid's class knows what you're talking about. Everybody. And like, I shouldn't even say this on the podcast because I'm probably screwing myself over, but I have got a really great group of like kids and teens right now, mainly because I have a really good kids and teens instructor. And, you know, like I'll teach those classes sometimes and I'm like, man, these kids all listen and do so much better than any other group that I've ever had. And I don't want to sign up new kids and stuff. I'm like, nah, I don't. We're pretty full on these. You know, we're pretty packed in these classes. Let's just, you know, tone it down a little. We're doing enough technique.
Yeah. It's funny. So I've got a great kids coach at my Greenwood Academy, but I'm teaching at my other one, right? And the kids class up there is really small, and probably honestly it's because I'm the coach. Like, because I saw pictures before I was up there and it was huge. But it's a small class, man. Like if I have 10 kids in that class, it's amazing. And I have 1 or 2 adults there to help me with every class. But man, the other day I remember Erin, she helps me. She's almost always there. She comes up and she's like, hey, she messaged me. I take it back. She messaged me on Facebook. She's like, hey, if you want me to take kids class tonight and you want to relax, I can do that. I was like, yes. And I just sat in the office and listened. I was like, just listening to how she taught and stuff. And class went really well. Like I didn't hear any screaming or anything. And I came out after and I was like, that went really well. She's like, I know. I don't know why. But like Wednesday, man, I had a great class. All the kids did the technique that perfectly, no problems. They all rolled great. They were quiet. There was no screaming. I was like, what guys, like, this is how we do class. It's so good. And then I complimented them and then they're like, we want to be loud during bow out. And like,
Every year I help with Vacation Bible School at my church. My dad's a pastor. I help out with Vacation Bible School. I always do different stuff. But one year I remember one of the helpers, one of the leaders, and she's like probably in her 40s. She's had kids and stuff. It's not like she's never worked with kids. And she was dealing with a kid that was kind of like a problem kid. And I could just see he was winning. And I go, and I like literally just grabbed her and I go, hey, I have learned something in the years of teaching kids jiu-jitsu. I said, every day you're trying to win the class. I go, right now, you've lost. I go, you've lost for the day. I go, you're not going to beat this kid. He's got the leg up on you. You're emotional. He's beating you down. I go, I'll take this kid the rest of the day. I go, but tomorrow you come in with the mindset that he's not breaking you. And she's like, thank you so much. I really needed that.
That's awesome.
So on just last little note, if people want to follow you, they enjoyed the podcast, or they hated the podcast because they hated me, but they liked you, what would be some good ways to kind of keep up with you and what you do? Because there are a lot of different things that you do.
Just call me on my cell. It's super easy. I'm James Clingerman, Clingerman with a C, on Instagram and Facebook. That's probably the easiest thing.
And I'll link those on the podcast descriptions.
Cool. And then, my website, thefighthub.com. Like I said, it's, hopefully within the week, it'll be softly up with the streaming DVD products, like the new model. We'll start getting more products kind of pumped in, start getting the affiliate thing going again. Thefighthub.com. If you guys are ever in Indianapolis, like hit me up. We'll train or something, or I'll just give you the class schedule and you can show up.
All right, man. That's awesome. I thank you so much for being on the show. This is a really good episode.
Yeah, it's about time. First black belt you ever met. Is this episode, like 150?
No, this is 90s. This is in the 90s. So you didn't even, dude, we're not even in the triple digits yet.
Okay. All right. That's acceptable.
Yeah. You're the first black belt I've had on the podcast. Everybody else has been white belts. So that's what it was.
Yeah.
I just thought, it's time to have a black belt on the podcast. All right, man. Thank you again for being on.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you.
And that is the episode. That concludes the interview on episode 93. I really hope you guys enjoyed that one. I really had a blast interviewing James. He's definitely going to be somebody that I got to get on the podcast again. He's just such an interesting person. And then on top of that, really good guy. I've competed against his guys a bunch coming up. That's really where, how I know him now is because, I would fight his guys coming up. And he was always really cool, and he's always really nice to me, even when I was some nobody blue belt that really wasn't doing much. And so I really think that's cool when people have that attitude that they treat people well, even if they're not a black belt, even if they're not relevant in jiu-jitsu. And so I thought that was really cool that he's always been like that. And I did take way too long to have him on the podcast. I definitely plan on having him on again. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I know I already said that, man, bit repetitive. Like I said, I'm just exhausted. Now, that being said, we are about to go full steam ahead into episode 100. We have 7 more, and I have some really special stuff planned for you guys for that 100th episode. So of course, be on the lookout. If you are not subscribed to the podcast, be sure to do so. If you want to follow me a little closer, the best way to do that would either be to follow me on Instagram at @McKinney, or you could sign up for my free ebook, Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu, where we take the 5 essential positions of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I almost said 6. James talked about the 6 positions, and it kind of screwed me up. But we take the 5 essential positions of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the 5 positions that 90% of Jiu-Jitsu happens in. And we break them down on how you should train them and how much time you should be putting into each position. And that ebook is completely free at simplifyingjujitsu.com and in the link in the description of wherever you are watching or listening. And that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys are happy that the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show is back. I hope you guys learned a little bit from this episode. I hope you guys laughed a little bit on this episode, and I hope that it helped you suck just a little bit less at jiu-jitsu.